Andrade is going to review for us Laubach, which was actually designed for the early beginner student. And we're very fortunate to have Kim giving this presentation to us. She has 30 years of experience in training, and I'm anxious to hear what she has to say about it. Please go ahead.
Jack's sort of dating me with that 30 years. Started when I was 10. And I was very happy to see that on Dawn's presentation, she listed Laubach Way to English as one of her resources. So we're going to talk more about that. And then I brought some here there. Okay. So again, Laubach Way to English is, I have always, I think a lot of people in the council know, I've sort of advocated for Laubach as a way to teach beginners, and I want to go into it a little more now. We don't cover it as in much detail, but, so first, a little history of Laubach. Frank Laubach developed this program, and it was each one teach one, because it was originally based on, you know, each one person can just teach one person. He was originally a missionary, and he was working in a remote area of the Philippines, and the people that he was working with didn't even have a written language. So he sort of developed this as a way to teach them a written language, and so it originally started as a literacy tool, and then later was adapted for ESL. In 1955, Frank Laubach founded the Laubach Literacy Action, which was later 2002, it merged with Literacy Volunteers of America to become Pro-Literacy, which is our current national organization. So, so we were originally an affiliate of Laubach Literacy Action. So it's a big part of our history. Now for Laubach at the Literacy Council, it was originally the exclusive book series that we used for both literacy and ESL tutoring. We did that for a while. Then around the 90s, I don't have the exact date, the literacy program moved off of Laubach into another program, and but we continued to use it in the ESL. But around 2017, we were evaluating the training, and we found that once a lot of our tutors left training, a lot of them weren't really using Laubach. And so we thought, is that really an effective use of our training to be, to have that as a core, a series that people weren't using. They were using a lot of the additional resources that we also incorporated in there. So around then was when we de-emphasized that as far as the training. I still list it when I do the training as one of the resources that are available, but I don't spend as much time on it as I used to. So some highlights of it. Laubach does, there's some people that don't, it's a very highly structured program. And for some people that doesn't work for them. But it really does actually work well for adults that have minimal skills in English and even their native language. Sometimes we get some students who do not have a low education level in their own language. And so not only do they need ESL help, but they also need help with literacy. And it's also, we were talking about detailed lesson plans. Laubach has very detailed lesson plans. It literally tells you, this is what you do, this is what you say, has everything spelled out. So for some people who are new tutors, it's a great way to start out because it's got all the lesson plans in there. It has a very consistent format. which I found when I used it was good, because for students, if the format that you're teaching them is consistent, it helps them to understand what's happening. You know, that they understand the pattern in there, because it has a very consistent pattern. New information is introduced in small increments. And this is good because it takes information that they know and adds to it, sort of builds on it. So it's not, you know, they're not getting something completely new. It starts simple and then you build on it. And it starts with oral skills. Even if they need help with literacy, you need to get them to a certain level with their oral skills before you can start teaching them literacy. So it starts off the introductory sections of Laubach are focusing exclusively on oral skills. And then later it takes those oral skills that you teach them and links them to the sections on reading and writing. And it's also nice, it can be adapted, it can be used for one-on-one, but it can also be used in group instruction. So this is sort of a series. It's got three. So essentially, in Laubach, you start with the Laubach Way to Reading series, and then they have a teacher's manual. That's the Laubach Way to English. The Laubach Way to English tells you how to use Laubach specifically for teaching ESL. And some of the other books that we used were, it includes, so this is a teacher's manual that again spells out everything you do and what you say. It also has some great assessments in there if you're not sure at what level your student's at. So a lot of that is built into the book. And then it has this illustrations book. And this is, you're teaching certain vocabulary, and a lot of times you need pictures. This is kind of old, but you can use, you know, this book as illustrations for the vocabulary that you're teaching. And in this case, you know, the initial vocabulary you're teaching is classroom type items. So, you know, they have classroom items like chairs and desks and students and things like that. So this is an illustrations book that we use. And also there's this Laubach Way to Reading skill book for the student. Now this is, once they've reached a certain level of oral skills, this is how they teach the reading and writing section. And, you know, we've heard talk about teaching them the alphabet and teaching them sounds. This is, there's a whole detailed way that we teach the alphabet. And again, they're taking the vocabulary they learned in the oral section, and it's getting tied to teaching them the alphabet, teaching them the sounds of the letters, teaching them, you know, what they mean. And then it has like a simple story that they can read. If you have a student that is also struggling with reading and writing. And as I said, it goes up 3 levels. By the time they get to the 3rd level, they can start using more of the standard adult materials. Now, I did a page from the Laubach Way to English Introductory Teacher's Manual to show how it's set up. And maybe a little hard to read, but at the very top, it has the objectives. So it tells you up front, these are the objectives of your lesson plan. By the end of your lesson plan, your student will understand this. You know, that's the goal. So you know what the goals are up front. At visual aids, it tells you these are the visual aids you will need for these lessons to have on hand. It has a dialogue in a box. Now, Joanne was talking about teaching initial dialogue of greeting, and that's the first dialogue that they have in here. So it is a standard one. It's, hello, how are you? Fine, thanks. How are you? Fine, thanks. And then, my name's so-and-so. What's your name? My name's this. So again, it has that standard initial dialogue, and it tells you this is how you teach it. It tells you this is how you teach it. This is what your script is. So it gives you, it spells all that out, again, for someone who's a new tutor. And I know when I was doing this in training, we would spend time sort of practicing this. And although we're not spending this in depth in training now, if somebody was interested in Laubach, I would be happy to be a resource for that or help. Because I taught it for a long time, so anyway, and again, I think that this is a definite good resource to consider for students who are beginning, tutors who are beginners, and for anyone that's looking for a structured program that for those beginning students, and also again, beginning tutors. In fact, some tutors would ask me, well, where do I start? It's like, well, you can literally open the book and just start here if you were looking for a place to begin. I also brought some books, since we used to use them in training. I had some books at home, and I brought some with me. Some I put on the table, a few I have here. So if anyone on your break, if you want to look at them, I think you could probably take them if you want to. We don't really use them. These books are also, I believe, still available in the office, because we did use these for a long time. And they should also be available here in the library. So, in fact, I know, Dawn, when you listed the books, Laubach Way to English, was on Amazon for $3.23. So it's also something you could get very low cost or maybe even free if you were interested in getting these books. Any questions? I've got a few. Joanne?
Yes, can you read the objectives in the last slide?
Sure.
The what they are.
Yeah, I tried to make it clear, but so the objectives in this first lesson would be: number 1, greet others and say goodbye. Number 2, understand classroom directions, both words and gestures. Number 3, identify classroom objects in the frame, like this is a desk, or this is a pencil. Number 4, say sentences with be, plus the subject pronouns I, you, it. So they're teaching some of the initial subject pronouns, or to be. Number 5, do all of the above with acceptable, that is understandable pronunciation, rhythm, and intonation. Number 6, read and write their name. And like I said, this is just the first page, so it goes on, and like this is just the dialogue. But Laubach also includes, for grammar, they call it structure focus. Because really, when you're teaching grammar, you're teaching how do you construct an English language sentence. And they also have, reading, and, well, initially it's the verbal skills. So it's vocabulary, dialogue, structure focus are the initial lessons that they have. And then later on, they incorporate the reading and writing. They actually do, I take that back, on the introductory unit, they're not teaching reading and writing, but there is some assessment where you do ask them to, back here, you ask them to write the letters and such, because you do want to find out where they are with reading and writing. So there is where you do ask them to write the different letters and numbers. So yeah, so this is part of the assessment that you do in there. So any other? Oh, there was in the back, Mary now.
Yeah.
Two questions. As Joanne mentioned that side-by-side is online,
Yeah.
so you can, is Laubach online?
You know, that's a good question. Not as much. They have some previews. In fact, so this is New Readers Press is the publisher, and New Readers Press is the publishing arm of Pro Literacy. And I've noticed they're not as good at the online. You do find some previews, and I know when I was looking for images, you can find some, but it's not fully online. I'll put it that way.
Second question.
Yeah.
This looks like a really good approach for very beginners.
Yeah.
You know, you're starting from the beginning. When you evaluated your training back in 2017, was there any reason why people weren't using this as they started training?
The feedback I heard, I had someone tell me, frankly, they thought, you know, it's boring, you know, because it's very structured. It's not a fun type thing. And certainly the way I've always trained, you can incorporate some fun stuff in there, but the exercises themselves are very structured. And for some people that doesn't work, for some students it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So part of the feedback was, A, it didn't work for their student. B, you know, the tutor didn't really like it. Some things, you know, like that. And a lot of them found other material. I mean, there's so many materials out there. A lot of tutors were finding other materials that work better for them and that were maybe more fun. So,
Okay, thank you.
I have a question too. Could you use this to teach online, to teach with Zoom? Or has anybody used Laubach in an online class?
I'm not sure how much they are. I think you could, as far as, there's different ways you could do it. Maybe, you know, you could, if they had the workbook, you could do it. I think you can, like you said, the pages. Well, like for example, I showed the teacher's manual. The teacher's manual is just for you. So in a way, and initially when you're teaching the oral skills, they don't need to have a lot of written stuff yet. So it can be adapted, I think. But there aren't ready-made, you know, Laubach materials out there for online. Yes, Maureen?
I have a suggestion.
Yeah.
There are multiple copies of textbooks and teachers' manuals, etc., of Laubach in our headquarter office. So if you are thinking of using that for your beginning student, I would suggest checking it out. Check out a set for yourself, check out a set for your student, and then so that when you're doing your class online, each of you have the book or the workbook that you're going to be teaching, and I would guess that you could probably do a Zoom, online Zoom teaching Laubach successfully by having both the student and the tutor having the same materials
Yeah.
in front of them. So.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Does anybody have, what other sources, I guess, do people use for very beginning students? I mean, Joanne's kind of was that for some of her lessons, but are there other things that people like or prefer?
Okay. Yeah, thank you. I like grammar and use. Jack suggested at one of these meetings 5 or 6 years ago. So for students who know a little English already, but I have a beginner now who's fully literate in her own language, can read English words, but really didn't know any English grammar at all. And I've been using a book called Basic English by Julie LaChance. And I mentioned this on a call a month or two ago, so I don't know if anybody else has tried it, but it's very strong on vocabulary. In each section, the student learns about 50 words, which they can either do as homework, or you can teach them with a PowerPoint in class. And then it works through grammar in baby steps. You know, the first chapter will be about using the verb to be with fill in the blank sentences, using those words that they've just learned. Lots of exercises. There's a Kindle version, so if you buy that, you can put it on your screen if you do a Zoom meeting. And the grammar can be kind of terse, and I supplement it with PowerPoints, sometimes with a few pages if I want to explain it my own way. Like, I don't know, what's the present perfect really about? How's it different from the past? And I've also been starting each class with some dialogues that I can find online, so people can talk about going to the market and meeting friends for coffee and the things, get comfortable with the language. But so they need to be able to read English words. So Laubach would be much better for somebody who doesn't even read much in their own language. For me, this is more up to speed, I think, with somebody who's literate in their own language.
Would you repeat the title again?
Yeah, it's called Basic English
By
by
Julie.
Julie LaChance. And she must be Canadian because there are lots of Canadian sentences in the exercises.
Can you spell her last name?
Yeah, it's capital L-A, capital C-H-A-N-C-E.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kim.
Thank you.